When we talk about balance, most people imagine a scale. On one side is the career, on the other is the relationship, and the challenge becomes how to keep the scale even without tipping too far in either direction. But this way of thinking is already flawed, because life is not a scale where one must always weigh against the other. Life is more like an ecosystem. In a healthy ecosystem, the parts don't compete, they support. And that is the first shift in perspective we must make if we want to live a life without sacrifice, redefining success beyond one dimension. For too long, society has trained us to measure success in singular terms. In the workplace, we glorify the person who climbs highest, earns the most, and sacrifices everything to achieve their goals. In relationships, we praise the person who gives everything to love, sometimes at the cost of their own growth or ambition. But the truth is, success is not singular, it is multidimensional. To excel in only one area while neglecting another is not balance, it is imbalance disguised as achievement. Think about the person who builds a brilliant career but comes home to an empty house, unable to maintain love or connection. Outwardly, they may look accomplished, but inwardly, many feel hollow. On the other hand, think of the person who devotes everything to a relationship but silences their own aspirations, slowly losing a sense of purpose. Outwardly, it may look like devotion, but inwardly, it feels like suffocation. Neither is success. True success is harmony. The ability to nurture both love and ambition, to honor both growth and connection, without forcing one to die for the other. Psychologically, this harmony matters more than we admit. When people ignore one dimension of their lives, the cost eventually shows up in the other. A career-driven individual who neglects relationships often carries loneliness or emotional exhaustion into their work. A person who ignores their career goals for the sake of love may later carry resentment or regret into that very relationship. In other words, what you neglect in one sphere does not stay contained, it bleeds into the other. That is why the idea of sacrifice is so dangerous. To sacrifice love for success, or success for love, is to create wounds that eventually show up everywhere. Philosophically, success must be redefined as integration rather than competition. Love and career are not enemies pulling you apart, they are teachers shaping you into wholeness. Career teaches you discipline, resilience, and purpose. Relationships teach you empathy, patience, and vulnerability. Together, they refine your character in ways that one alone never could. To choose one at the expense of the other is to cut off part of your humanity, but to hold them together is to live fully with depth and dimension. And here is the subtle truth. Balance does not mean equal time, but equal value. There will be seasons when your career requires more focus, deadlines, projects, opportunities you cannot miss. There will be seasons when your relationship requires more of you, moments of crisis, moments of joy, times when presence matters more than ambition. Balance is not about rigidly dividing your energy. It is about honoring the value of both spheres so neither is consistently starved. This is why redefining success is so powerful. If success means only career, you will sacrifice love. If success means only relationship, you will sacrifice purpose. But if success means harmony, if it means building a life where love and work support rather than sabotage each other, you begin to make choices differently. You stop asking, which must I give up? And you start asking, how can both grow together? That question changes everything. In practical terms, this redefinition frees you from guilt. Many people feel guilty when they invest in their career, believing it means they're neglecting their partner. Others feel guilty when they prioritize their relationship, believing it means they're falling behind at work. But guilt comes only when you believe the two must compete. Once you see them as complementary, the guilt dissolves. You recognize that nurturing one strengthens the other because a fulfilled person is a better partner and a supported partner is a stronger professional. So the challenge is not to sacrifice, but to harmonize, to build a vision of success that is wide enough to hold both ambition and intimacy, both progress and presence. This is not easy because it requires awareness, discipline, and intentionality, but it is possible. And more than possible, it is necessary. Because a life that sacrifices love for success is lonely, and a life that sacrifices success for love is incomplete. But a life that holds both creates legacy. So I leave you with this thought: success is not the height you reach in one direction, but the wholeness you build across every direction. Do not choose between career and relationship. Choose the life where both can thrive together. Because in the end, real success is not a trophy you hold in your hand. It is the harmony you feel in your heart. When most people talk about balance, they obsess over time. How many hours should I give to my work? How many should I give to my partner? How can I split the day in a way that feels fair? But this way of thinking leads to frustration, because time alone is not the solution. You can spend hours with someone and still feel disconnected. You can spend only a few moments and feel completely seen. Balance is not about the quantity of time. It is about the quality of presence. Presence is the difference between simply being there and truly showing up. You know the difference. You've experienced someone sitting across from you at dinner, eyes on their phone, mind on their work, spirit elsewhere. Technically, they were there. Physically, they gave you time, but emotionally, they gave you nothing. Contrast that with the rare moment when someone puts everything else aside and gives you their full attention. Their eyes, their ears, their presence. In just minutes, that kind of connection nourishes more than hours of distracted time ever could. This is the heart of balance. Your career may demand many hours, your relationship may have limited windows, but if you bring your full presence into those moments, both can thrive without sacrifice. The truth is, presence multiplies time. 10 minutes of real connection is worth more than 10 hours of half attention. Psychologically, presence has profound effects. When you are fully present with someone, their brain registers safety. They feel valued, respected, important. Presence tells them, in this moment, nothing is more important than you. That feeling deepens bonds and creates trust. But when you are physically there and mentally absent, the opposite happens. The other person senses the distance, even if you try to hide it. Humans are wired to pick up on attention. Presence cannot be faked. It must be chosen. Philosophically, presence is about more than attention. It is about being alive. Too many of us live in fragments, half in the past, half in the future, half in our phones, half in our thoughts. Rarely do we live in the now. And yet, the now is the only place love and life actually happen. When you bring presence into a conversation, into a dinner, into a shared moment, you are saying, I am here, I am alive with you right now. That is not just communication, it is communion. Now let's connect this to career. Many professionals feel torn. If I give more time to my work, I lose my relationship. If I give more time to my relationship, I fall behind in my work. But the problem is not always time. It is the lack of presence in either space. How often do we carry our work home, not in hours, but in attention? How often do we sit in the office distracted by personal struggles we never communicated? The real challenge is not hours, but division of mind. If you learn to be fully present at work and fully present at home, you create balance without needing to sacrifice one for the other. This is why intentional transitions matter. Small rituals, closing the laptop with finality, taking a deep breath before walking through the door, setting aside the phone during dinner, signal to your mind that you are shifting worlds. They prepare you to give presence instead of fragments. Without these rituals, we blur boundaries, bringing half of ourselves everywhere and giving all of ourselves nowhere. Presence also requires courage. It is easy to hide behind distraction, to keep conversations shallow, to avoid eye contact and depth. True presence means opening yourself, risking discomfort, listening with attention, speaking with honesty. It is not passive, it is an active choice. To be present is to give your energy, your attention, your humanity to another person without dilution. That is what makes presence so rare and therefore so powerful. And here's the paradox: presence is free, but it is also priceless. You don't need to earn more money or find more hours to give it. You simply need to choose it. Yet the impact of presence lasts far longer than time. Ask a child what they remember most. It won't be how many hours you were home, but whether you were truly with them when you were. Ask a partner what they value most. It won't be constant availability, but the feeling of being fully seen and heard when it mattered. Ask yourself what memories you cherish most. They are moments of connection, not just hours of coexistence. So stop obsessing over the clock. Stop believing balance requires equal division of hours. Balance requires equal devotion of presence. And presence is a choice you can make right now, no matter how busy you are, no matter how many demands pull at you. I leave you with this: distracted time creates distance, but intentional presence creates depth. If you want a career that thrives and a relationship that endures, don't just give your hours, give your presence. Because presence is the most powerful form of love and the most lasting form of success. When we look at the challenge of balancing career and relationship one of the greatest sources of tension is not the actual demands themselves, but the lack of communication about those demands. Careers and relationships often feel like separate worlds pulling us in opposite directions. Work asks for performance, deadlines, focus, and achievement. Love asks for presence, intimacy, patience, and vulnerability. Without communication, those worlds collide. But with communication, those worlds can be bridged. The truth is, most conflicts about balance are not caused by the career itself or the relationship itself. They are caused by the silence between them. When expectations are unspoken, when struggles are hidden, when one person assumes the other should just know, frustration builds. Resentment grows not because of the demands of work or love, but because of the lack of dialogue connecting them. Silence, left unchecked, turns career into competition with love, and love into an obstacle to career. Communication changes this dynamic entirely. When you are honest about your responsibilities, when you express your stress, your deadlines, your needs, you allow your partner to understand your world instead of resenting it. And when you are equally open to listening to their needs, their desire for time, for attention, for reassurance, you create a bridge. Instead of two worlds competing, you now have two worlds collaborating. Psychologically, this matters deeply. Human beings do not resent demands as much as they resent uncertainty. If your partner knows you are busy for a week because of an important project, but you communicate that clearly, they may still miss you, but they will understand you. But if you disappear into your work without explanation, they are left in the dark. In the absence of communication, the mind fills gaps with fear. Am I not a priority? Do they even care? Communication prevents fear by giving clarity. And clarity is one of the greatest gifts you can offer in both love and life. Philosophically, communication is the bridge between inner and outer worlds. We live internally with thoughts, emotions, pressures, and desires that no one can see unless we reveal them. Without communication, those inner worlds remain locked, leaving others to guess. But guessing breeds misunderstanding. Communication unlocks those inner worlds and allows them to connect. It does not remove tension completely, but it makes tension manageable. In this way, communication is not just practical, it is profoundly human. Think of it this way. If career and relationship are two different languages, communication is the translation. Without translation, both sides misinterpret each other. The career may look like neglect. The relationship may look like distraction, but with translation, when you take the time to explain, to share, to listen, what looked like conflict becomes cooperation. Your career is no longer stealing from your relationship, and your relationship is no longer holding back your career. Instead, they begin to reinforce one another. But communication requires honesty, and honesty requires courage. Too often we hide the truth because we fear how the other person will react. We downplay the stress of work because we don't want to disappoint. We avoid telling our partner what we need emotionally because we don't want to seem demanding. Yet withholding truth does not protect relationships. It weakens them. Real strength comes from speaking openly, even when it's uncomfortable, and trusting that love can handle the weight of honesty. And communication is not just about words. It is about tone, timing, and intention. If you only communicate when you are exhausted, your words will carry fatigue more than clarity. If you only communicate during conflict, your words will feel like defense instead of connection. Effective communication requires intentionality, choosing the right moments, the right mindset, the right spirit. This is where presence, as we spoke of earlier, becomes vital. Presence in communication means you are not just dumping information, but inviting understanding. Beyond relationships, the same principle applies to life. Teams and workplaces collapse not because of workload, but because of poor communication. Friendships drift apart not because of distance, but because of silence. Families fracture not because of lack of love, but because of unspoken words. Communication is always the bridge, and when the bridge is strong, distance does not destroy. So the question to ask yourself is this: are you building bridges or barriers in your communication? Are you speaking to connect, or are you leaving silence to be filled with assumptions? Are you creating understanding, or are you letting misunderstanding grow in the dark? Because the quality of your balance between career and relationship depends not on how much you have to juggle, but on how well you communicate what you are juggling. Here is the closing truth: careers and relationships will always create tension. That tension cannot be erased, but it can be bridged. And the bridge is communication, honest, intentional, courageous. Without it, you will always feel torn. With it, you will feel connected, even in the busiest seasons of life. So I leave you with this: don't let silence turn your career into competition and your relationship into casualty speak. Listen, share, build the bridge. Because in the end, balance is not found in the absence of demands. It is found in the presence of communication. If we've talked about boundaries, presence, and communication, the final piece of balance lies in something deeper than time or conversation. It lies in alignment. Because no matter how well you manage your schedule, no matter how present you are, no matter how well you communicate, if your career and your relationship are built on fundamentally opposing purposes, they will constantly feel like they are pulling you apart. True balance without sacrifice happens when your career and your relationship share alignment of purpose. What do I mean by alignment of purpose? It's not that you and your partner must have the same job, the same interests, or even the same daily routines. Alignment of purpose means that both of you see life as more than a checklist of achievements or a set of obligations. It means you share an understanding of why you're working, why you're loving, and why you're building a life together. When purpose is shared, differences in career paths don't divide you. They enrich you. But when purpose is absent, even the smallest differences create friction. Psychologically, humans are wired for meaning. We don't just want to live, we want to know why we live. Viktor Frankl once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." That applies not just to the individual, but to the couple. When a couple has a shared why, they can endure the stress of long hours, the pressure of deadlines, the challenges of ambition, because they know their relationship is not competing with those things, but coexisting with them under a greater purpose. Without that why, the career feels like a threat, the relationship feels like a burden, and both start to drain instead of fuel each other. Think of a simple example. A person whose purpose is to create security for their family will not see their long hours as a betrayal of their partner, because both understand that those hours are part of a shared purpose. On the other hand, if one partner is working long hours without ever explaining the why, without ever connecting it to a greater vision, the relationship begins to interpret those hours as absence, neglect, or selfishness. Alignment transforms sacrifice into investment. Philosophically, alignment is about living life as a whole, not as fragments. Too many people live divided lives. One self at work, another self at home. A fractured existence where nothing feels integrated. But a balanced life is not one of constant juggling. It is one of integration. When your career aligns with your values, and when your relationship aligns with those same values, you are no longer divided. You are one person living one life in which both career and relationship serve the same deeper purpose. This alignment doesn't happen by accident. It requires conversation, reflection, and sometimes recalibration. Couples need to ask, what do we value most? What is the purpose of our success? What kind of life are we building together? These are not casual questions, they are guiding questions. When ignored, couples drift apart, each pulled in separate directions. But when embraced, they create a foundation so strong that no career demand, no external pressure can easily shake it. And here's something most people miss: alignment of purpose is not about perfection. It doesn't mean there will never be tension or disagreement. It means that even in those disagreements, there is a shared compass pointing in the same direction. One person may want to build wealth, the other may want to build experiences. But if both agree that the deeper purpose is creating a meaningful, secure, joyful life together, those goals can harmonize instead of clash. This is where balance turns into something greater than just survival. It becomes synergy. In synergy, the career doesn't drain the relationship, it fuels it. The relationship doesn't slow down the career, it inspires it. Each world, instead of competing, begins to amplify the other. But synergy only emerges when there is alignment of purpose, when both partners see their lives as part of the same story. So the question becomes, are you and your partner living two separate stories that occasionally intersect, or are you living one story that you are writing together? If it feels like the former, then communication and presence alone won't fix the imbalance. You must go deeper to purpose and ask, what are we truly building and why does it matter? If you find that shared purpose, the balance you seek stops feeling like a struggle. Work doesn't steal from love, love doesn't distract from work. Instead, they both become channels of the same energy, the same vision. And when that happens, balance is no longer about sacrifice. It becomes about harmony. So I leave you with this: success in career and love is not about keeping them separate and managing the tension. It is about aligning them under a common purpose. Without alignment, you will always feel divided. With alignment, you become whole. And when you are whole, balance is no longer something you chase. It becomes the natural rhythm of your life.